There's a kind of discipline that never breaks. Not when you're exhausted. Not when the world falls apart. Not even when every part of you wants to quit. Today, you're about to uncover the ancient system that forged unbreakable warriors. Have you ever wondered how the mountain hermits of old trained in silence for years? How they survived alone through brutal winters? How they moved like shadows and persisted without motivation, reminders, or anyone cheering them on? The truth has nothing to do with willpower. It comes from something they called Ninpo, the path of the hidden soul, a system built on 5 quiet pillars that reshaped the mind from the inside out. Modern science is only now catching up. Our brains were never built for discipline. They were built for survival, and these warriors learned how to use that truth to their advantage. But Ninpo demands a price. It asks you to let go of the weaker self, the version of you that breaks your own promises and bargains with excuses. Before I show you how this ancient system works, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Now let's return to the story. Chapter 1. The Failed Boy. Feudal Japan, Iga Prefecture, 1540. There was a 14-year-old boy named Ryoji, whom everyone in the village mocked with the same cruel nickname, Ryoji the Lazy. He had dreamed of becoming a shinobi ever since he first saw shadowy silhouettes glide across the rooftops at night. But he had one enormous problem. He was pathetic. Every morning he woke up determined. Today I'll start. 3 push-ups. Then he got tired and wandered off to eat. He promised he would meditate. He sat for 2 minutes. His mind drifted, and he stood up. He vowed to practice with a wooden sword, 5 strikes, aching arms, and he quit. The cycle never changed. Monday morning. Today is the day. Monday afternoon. Maybe tomorrow. Tuesday. He forgot he ever promised anything. His father, a blacksmith with calloused hands and a practical mind, had no patience for dreams. Ryoji, shinobi are legends. Ghost stories for children. You'll learn my trade and stop this nonsense. He lied. Ryoji's father knew the shinobi existed. He knew there was a hidden school in the mountains. He even knew exactly where it was, and hid that truth from his son because he didn't trust him to take it seriously. But Ryoji couldn't let go. Every night he stared up at the mountains where the school was rumored to be. Every morning he woke thinking, what if I really try this time? And every afternoon he quit again, until the day everything changed, in a way he never imagined. Ryoji was returning from the forest after another useless training session, 20 minutes of playing with twigs, when he noticed a man standing in the middle of the path. An ordinary man. Simple clothing. Nothing remarkable, except for his eyes. Those eyes looked straight through him. You want to be a shinobi. Not a question. A statement. Ryoji froze. I was just... You were wasting time again. The man stepped closer. How many times did you promise yourself today would be different? Ryoji stayed silent. He knew the answer. Hundreds of times. Maybe thousands. Come with me. The man turned toward the mountains. If you can keep up, I'll show you where the school is. If not, you go home and accept you were born to be a blacksmith. Ryoji stared at the mountain. 3 hours of steep climbing. He had never stuck to anything for 3 hours in his life. But something about that moment was different. Maybe it was the harsh clarity in the man's voice. Maybe it was the fact that this was his only chance. Or maybe he was just tired of being weak. I'll go. The first 20 minutes were fine. By 40, his legs were burning. An hour into the climb, his mind screamed familiar excuses. You can't do this. Turn back. Tomorrow will be better. But the man didn't slow down. Didn't look back. Didn't speak. 2 hours later, Ryoji was crawling, hands and knees on the dirt, tears streaming, every muscle in his body begging him to quit. And in that agony, he understood something that changed everything. The pain didn't matter. The fatigue didn't matter. Only the decision mattered. He said he would, and warriors keep their word. Ryoji forced himself up and kept walking. 3 hours and 15 minutes later, he reached the top, collapsed, vomited, and passed out. When he opened his eyes, he was inside a dark wooden temple, incense in the air, silence pressing in on him. The man sat before him. "You've completed the first lesson of Ninp," he said. "Welcome to the Koga school." Chapter 2. The Death of the Weak Self. Ryoji woke before dawn to the sound of a bell. Not a soft chime. A deep, violent gong that seemed to rattle inside his skull. He jolted upright, breath sharp, vision blurry. When he looked around, he froze. 15 students already stood at attention. Same dark training robes. Same unblinking stare. Perfectly still, like carved statues waiting for orders. And in the center of the hall stood the same man who had dragged Ryoji up the mountain. The master. His voice cut through the silence. "In Ninpo, there is no such thing as trying. There are only 2 states: you are, or you are not." He took a single step forward, and the entire room seemed to tighten. "From this moment on, you are students. Students wake when the bell wakes them. There's no negotiation." Ryoji glanced at the window. The world outside was still drowned in night. "But, Master, what time is?" The master's eyes snapped toward him, and Ryoji felt his stomach drop. "Questions," the master said quietly, "are thoughts. Thoughts create hesitation. Hesitation creates death." He tapped the bell once with his staff. The bell rings. You rise. That is the end of the story. The first week, breaking the old self. The days that followed were not training. They were destruction. The bell tore them from sleep before the sky even hinted at dawn. An hour of meditation in absolute silence. No movement, no fidgeting, no escape into imagination. Then 2 hours of brutal conditioning that pushed their bodies into trembling ruin. Strategy lessons until their minds pulsed. Stealth drills until sunset. Eat, sleep, wake to the bell. Repeat. Every day, Ryoji wanted to quit. Every muscle screamed. Every thought begged him to stop. But unlike home, quitting wasn't an option here. Because the very first thing they had done on the very first day was take the oath of the invisible path. One by one, each student stood at the center of the hall, surrounded by everyone else, and declared, "I walk the Shinobi path. My word is my life. If I break my word, I no longer exist." The oath was recorded in the master's thick black ledger. 15 students heard it. 15 witnesses who would not forget. In that moment, identity shifted. Not "I will try," not "I hope," but "this is who I am." And the human brain, ancient and primitive beneath all reason, treats the loss of identity as death. In the old world, anyone cast out by their tribe died alone in the wilderness. The Shinobi understood this long before science ever explained it. Their philosophy was simple. Never break your oath. To break it is to break yourself. The third day. On the third morning, Ryoji could barely lift his head. His arms trembled. His ribs ached. His legs felt carved from stone. His mind whispered, "You're injured. Rest one day. One day won't matter." He slowly turned his head. Every other student was already standing. None spoke. None complained. None even looked tired. Or perhaps they were simply refusing to show it. If he stayed on the floor, it wouldn't just be his secret failure. Everyone would see. Everyone would know he had broken his oath. The shame would be worse than the pain. So Ryoji stood. The weak version of him screamed, kicked, clawed, but he rose anyway. The boy who broke the oath. On the 5th night, during the quiet clatter of dinner bowls, a student whispered under his breath, "We can't keep this up. This training will kill us." He barely finished the sentence before the master stood. "Pack your belongings," he said without raising his voice. "You're dismissed." The boy froze. "But I didn't break a rule. I only said." "You planted doubt." The master's eyes hardened. "And in Ninpo, doubt is an action against your oath." The boy tried to plead, but the master pointed to the door. He left that night. No one saw him again. After that, no one ever complained. The oath was not a ceremony. It was the backbone of their existence, the second pillar. But Ryoji soon learned something painful. The oath only killed the old version of him. It didn't automatically build the new one. Even with fear, even with pressure, his mind still fought him every hour. It was an internal war far louder than the bell. One evening, Sensing Ryoji's struggle, the master approached. "Your oath removes your escape," he said, "but it does not give you strength." He lowered himself to sit beside Ryoji. The second pillar of Ninpo is the discipline that does not change, no matter how you feel. He touched the floor with 2 fingers. This is called rhythm, the ancient warrior's heartbeat. Ryoji listened, breath held. "Break rhythm," the master said, "and the weak self returns. Follow rhythm, and the weak self dies." Ryoji swallowed. This was only the beginning. Chapter 3. The Rhythm That Refuses to Break. Ryoji had been training under the old mountain mentor, Sensei Kaido, for almost 2 weeks, and every morning, the same silent torture ran in circles inside his head. Should I train now or after breakfast? Wake up at 5 or maybe 6. Start today or wait until I have more energy. He thought these tiny choices made him adaptable. In reality, they drained him before he even moved. On the 14th day, Kaido appeared at his door before sunrise. "You are still hesitating," the master said calmly. "I see it in the small delays you think I don't notice." Ryoji frowned. "But sensei, I get up every day. I haven't failed once." "Waking up isn't the victory," Kaido replied. "Deciding to wake up is where you lose. As long as a choice exists, weakness enters. To remove weakness, you must remove the choice." He tapped the wooden bell hanging outside the door. "In our discipline, time is not something you adjust. It is something you obey. The bell rings at the same moment every morning because rhythm must be absolute. When time is fixed, there is no negotiation left." Ryoji didn't quite understand until the 3rd week. On the 19th day, he woke seconds before the bell. On the 25th, he opened his eyes even earlier. By the 30th, he was already sitting upright, mind sharp, breathing steady. Long before the bell touched the air, his body had begun preparing itself before his thoughts even woke. Not because he was gifted, because the pattern was unbreakable. But the moment the one became automatic, a new conflict appeared. What should today's training be? Strength, speed, climbing, sword forms, something unusual, something exciting? If time couldn't be negotiated anymore, Ryoji began negotiating the activity instead. Sensei Kaido noticed instantly. "You are creating chaos to escape discipline," he said. "Variety feels productive, but weakens form. Mastery requires depth, not novelty." He handed Ryoji a rolled-up scroll. "For the next 100 days," Kaido declared, "you will follow this exact sequence. Same warm-up, same stances, same strikes, same repetitions. Not one change. Not even one." Ryoji's eyes widened. 100 days? But sensei, won't I get bored? And won't my progress stop? Kaido smiled faintly. Boredom is simply the ego resisting transformation. And evolution begins when the practice becomes so familiar that your mind finally sees the invisible details. Ryoji lowered his head, not in defeat, but in acceptance. This wasn't punishment. This was the path. Chapter 4. The Form That Frees. Sensei Kaido once told Ryoji something he didn't understand at the time. Variety feels like freedom, but it is actually the birthplace of weakness. Ryoji thought the old man was exaggerating, but once he began his shuyo, the 100-day discipline cycle, he realized exactly what the master meant. Every time he had changed his training in the past, he assumed he was keeping things interesting. But each change came with hidden questions. Should I run today or practice strikes? Should I go easy or push harder? Should I add something new? Should I skip something old? Each tiny decision was an opening, a crack where old habits slipped back through. So Kaido stripped all variety away. For 100 days, Ryoji would follow a single, unbreakable sequence. 50 push-ups, 100 squats, sword kata for 30 minutes, breathing forms for 20 minutes. Same place, same order, same hour. The first week was pure rebellion. His mind screamed with insults. This is pointless. You're becoming a machine. No human trains like this. You're wasting your time. Change something. Anything. By the second week, the other students finally noticed. "Ryoji, you're turning into a robot," one joked. "Where's the creativity? Where's your expression?" another teased. Kaido heard them and laughed softly. Creativity without foundation is only organized chaos. If you want expression, master the form first. Once the form is yours, the expression will follow. The third week felt like psychological warfare. Every morning, Ryoji's mind whispered, "Just change one thing. Just for today. Just so you don't lose your mind." But he remembered the oath he made at the start of Shuyo, and the student who had been expelled for breaking the pattern. That memory was enough to keep him aligned. By the fourth week, something bizarre happened. His willpower was weakening, but not his discipline. Kaido explained why. Willpower fades. Discipline strengthens. When a habit offers no negotiation, the mind stops fighting. And he was right. Ryoji's inner voice, once loud and dramatic, grew tired. It complained less. Then it stopped complaining at all. By week 6, the transformation arrived quietly. Ryoji was halfway through push-ups when he realized. He wasn't thinking. His body simply flowed through the sequence, every movement smooth, efficient, inevitable. Not boredom. Freedom. Freedom from the constant burden of deciding. Freedom from the daily battle with his own mind. Freedom from the noise. And then, in the 8th week, the real magic appeared. During sword practice, he noticed a tiny flaw in his wrist rotation. Something so small he would have missed it if his focus had been spread across choices and novelty. Kaido had been observing silently. "Now you see," the master said. "When form becomes automatic, consciousness is finally free to notice the invisible." He told Ryoji about a Kyoto University neuroscientist who had spent 18 years studying behavioral automation. When a sequence is repeated in the same environment for roughly 66 days, the basal ganglia take over. The mind becomes free for higher functions. The behavior becomes as natural as breathing. Ryoji felt it happening. But then came day 45. His body collapsed with fever. He felt weak, shaky, and nauseous. His mind whispered excuses he hadn't heard in weeks. "Just skip today. No one trains sick. You'll get back on track tomorrow." That voice was deadly. The same voice that had ruined every previous attempt at discipline. He went to Kaido. "Sensei, I'm sick. Should I rest today?" Kaido looked at him with an expression that hovered between pity and disbelief. "Rest is not the same as stopping. You are not asking me about rest. You are asking for permission to create a gap." "A gap?" Ryoji asked. Kaido pointed to the river flowing behind the training hall. A river never stops. When the water is low, it moves slowly. When the rains come, it rages. But as long as it moves, it remains a river. When it stops, it dies. Your practice is the same. Then Kaido taught him the third pillar of Ninpo. Muku practice without gaps. Are you weak today? Then do less. 10 push-ups instead of 50. A shorter meditation instead of a long one. But do something. Momentum is more valuable than perfection. Ryoji did half his usual routine. It was sloppy. It hurt. It felt wrong. But it counted. And because he never allowed the pattern to break, the next morning, even with the fever fading, his body returned to full training without hesitation. If he had skipped entirely, his mind would have remembered the break. You skipped yesterday. Why not today? Why not tomorrow? But because the river never stopped flowing, the pattern stayed alive. On day 70, a violent storm flooded the training hall. Rain slammed the earth like hammers. Students whispered that training would surely be canceled. Ryoji approached his master. "Sensei, where do we train today?" Kaido pointed to the covered patio outside, where rain sprayed in sideways gusts. "There, but it's freezing. The ground is slippery." Kaido tightened his robe. "Do you think your enemies wait for sunny days? Do you think your challenges will only appear when you feel comfortable?" And so Ryoji trained in the rain, shivering, soaked, cold, uncomfortable, determined. He trained without a break, because the river never stops. Chapter 5. The Invisible Preparation. Ryoji believed he had seen the worst of training. The oath. The unchanging rhythm, the unforgiving form, the no-gap momentum. But he hadn't met the true enemy yet. The enemy that breaks everyone. Not pain. Not exhaustion. Not boredom. The obstacle you never see coming. Day 80. Ryoji was finishing his breathing exercises when a shadow filled the doorway. His father. Eyes tired, breath heavy. Ryoji, you need to come home. It's urgent. Ryoji's stomach dropped, not from fear of the emergency, but from something far more shameful. The training. Only 20 days left until the 100-day Shuyo. If he left now, if he broke the pattern. Sensei Kaido stepped between them before Ryoji could speak. Do you think obstacles ask permission before arriving? His voice was calm, steady. Do you think life cares about your schedule? But Sensei, I promised I would finish. You promised to practice without gaps, not to practice without inconvenience. This is your real test. Discipline means nothing when everything is comfortable. Then Kaido revealed the fourth pillar of Ninpo. Zeni, prior preparation. A true shinobi is never surprised, he said. Not because life is easy, but because he has already decided his answers before life asks the questions. He sat Ryoji down. List every obstacle that could break your pattern. Ryoji wrote. Travel. Illness. Of visitors. Emergencies. Storms. Injuries. For each, Kaido continued. Decide the response. Don't guess. Don't improvise. Write it. They crafted a plan. Travel, pre-dawn road workout. Sickness, half reps. Arm injury, leg-focused training. Rain, covered patio. Family emergency, essential 15-minute sequence. No space, breathing plus squats only. Every scenario had a precise, automatic reaction. No thinking. No hesitation. No negotiations. Execute your list. Kaido said. That is Zeni. Returning home, Ryoji left with his father. For 3 days, he carried heavy buckets, repaired fences, and tended to his injured uncle. He helped from sunrise until night. But every morning at 4 a.m., he slipped outside into the cold air. 20 push-ups. 10 minutes of meditation. Basic kata. A condensed version, but a version nonetheless. The neighbors whispered, "Your family needs you. And you're out here swinging a sword in the dark? Has training made you insane?" But Ryoji knew something they didn't. Training didn't take strength away from his family. That it preserved the identity that allowed him to be strong for them. He returned to the school on day 83. Kaido waited in the courtyard. How many days did you miss? Ryoji bowed. None, Sensei. For the first time, Kaido smiled, a real smile. Good. Now you're beginning to understand. A behavioral psychologist at the University of Tokyo had studied this phenomenon for 22 years. Predeciding actions prevents decision fatigue, increasing follow-through by up to 300%. Ryoji didn't know the science, but he felt the truth. Day 95. 5 days left. Something had changed inside Ryoji. He didn't talk about discipline. He didn't promise anything. He didn't motivate himself with speeches or fear or pride. He simply did the work. Students whispered behind him. How does he do it? He never hesitates. He never struggles. An older student answered. He doesn't do. He is. Day 100. Ryoji completed the full sequence with precision. The 100th consecutive day with no breaks, no exceptions, no cracks in the pattern. The bell rang to mark the end of Shuyo. He expected relief. He expected joy. Maybe even pride. Instead, he felt quiet. A deep, vast silence inside him. Kaido approached. How do you feel? Empty, Sensei, but not in a sad way. Like something heavy has left me. Kaido nodded. What left you is the version of you that needed to decide. The version that hesitated. The version that negotiated. He placed a hand on Ryoji's shoulder. You have reached the 5th pillar of Ninpo. Mushin, the mind without mind. The state where action flows without effort. Where discipline replaces motivation. Where identity replaces willpower. Where the old self finally dies. Chapter 6. The mind that does not hesitate. Ryoji stood before Sensei Kaido. The morning air cold enough to bite through his clothes. Yet his mind was still, like a lake untouched by wind. Mushin, Kaido said quietly. The mind with no mind. He paced slowly in front of Ryoji, tapping the wooden floor with his staff. But don't misunderstand. Mushin is not emptiness. It is not stupidity. It is the absence of the one thing that weakens all warriors. He tapped Ryoji's chest. The ego that hesitates. Kaido raised his hand, drawing an invisible line in the air. When a blade is coming at your throat, you do not have time to wonder. Dodge. Block. Step back. Think for even half a heartbeat, and you die. A shinobi must act without the inner debate between should and want. The response must be pure, instinctive, uninterrupted. He pointed at Ryoji's heart, and that is what you built during your 100 days. You didn't just gain discipline. You killed the version of yourself that negotiates. The change. Ryoji reflected silently. He realized something strange. For the past month, he had not once thought, should I rest today? Maybe I'll train later. What if I skip this one time? Those thoughts no longer arrived. Training simply happened. Like a heartbeat. Like breathing. Like blinking. Automatic. Unquestioned. Inevitable. He didn't push himself. He didn't motivate himself. He simply was. Kaido watched him with a faint smile. The real test begins now, Ryoji. Your 100 days are over. The fixed form is over. The question is, will you return to the person you were? Or have you become someone new? Ryoji answered without hesitation. I'll continue. Kaido's voice was calm. Why? Ryoji breathed in deeply, and the words came out from a place deeper than discipline. Because I'm no longer someone who trains. I'm someone who is. Kaido nodded once. Welcome to true Ninpo. 3 months later, without ceremony, without a graduation scroll, and without a dramatic announcement, Ryoji simply became a shinobi. It wasn't because he earned a title. It was because something in him had fundamentally shifted. His discipline began to unsettle the others. He never complained, never bargained, never said, I'll try. He simply executed the day as if it had already been decided. One afternoon, a new student approached him nervously. Ryoji-senpai, how do you manage to never fail? You make it look impossible. Ryoji looked at him with the same expression Kaido once wore. Failure isn't an option in my mind. The student blinked. But how do you remove an option? Ryoji answered. You sacrifice the version of yourself that would have taken it. He tapped his chest. The version that hesitated. The version that negotiated. The version that said maybe tomorrow. His voice lowered, steady and calm. When that version dies, all that remains is the warrior who kept his word. A deeper transformation. But something else had changed, something outside of training. People around Ryoji began whispering, not with admiration, but with unease. He doesn't talk like a normal student. He moves like he's deciding nothing, but doing everything. This isn't normal. And Ryoji didn't deny it, because becoming not normal is exactly what the path required. Exactly what the old Ryoji never dared to be. Exactly what the warrior Ryoji had become. Chapter 7. The Warrior Who Scares. 6 months had passed since Ryoji completed his shoujo. It was time for his first real mission. A castle deep in enemy territory, a stolen set of critical documents, and 7 days with no sleep, no proper food, no comfort. Every obstacle imaginable tested him. Storms, patrols, hunger, exhaustion. Everything that could go wrong did. And yet, Ryoji succeeded. He returned with the documents, unscathed, calm. When the other shinobi asked him how he endured it, he shrugged. I did what needed to be done. But the truth was far more profound. During those 7 days, not once did Ryoji think, I can't. That voice, the weak, doubting voice, had long since been silenced. In its place was clarity, pure, decisive action. Later, Kaido pulled him aside. People will look at you differently now, the master said. They'll call you obsessive, extreme, unbalanced. Do you know why? No, sensei, Ryoji answered. Because your discipline exposes their weakness. It makes them uncomfortable. And that discomfort is proof you are on the right level. The price of discipline. Ryoji noticed it everywhere. His reputation grew. Some admired him. Some feared him. Most reacted with unease. He's not normal, they whispered. No one needs to be this disciplined. That can't be healthy. Ryoji understood the truth. Normal people get normal results. Warriors operate on a different plane. A plane where I can't is not in the vocabulary. The early morning lesson. One morning at 4 a.m., Ryoji trained in the courtyard. A group of new students walked past, whispering among themselves. Man, that's scary. He never stops. Ryoji smiled quietly. He remembered the boy he used to be. The boy who couldn't do 3 push-ups. The boy everyone called lazy. That boy was gone. In his place stood a warrior. A warrior doesn't become better because they hear no. They become different. A person others look at and think, that is not human. And when you hear that, you know the weak version of yourself is gone. The 5 pillars of NPO. The system wasn't complicated, but it demanded everything. 1. Ketsui, the public oath. Stop making private promises. Declare your identity publicly. Not I will try, I am. 2. Re, the unchanging rhythm. Fix your schedule. Remove time as a variable. The body learns the pattern. Negotiation disappears. 3. Cutter, perfect form. Repeat the same exact sequence daily for at least 100 days. No variation. No creativity. Repetition until the body performs automatically. 4. Muku, practice without gaps. Never create a complete gap. Injured. Sick. Reduce volume, but don't stop. 0 is the enemy. Momentum is everything. 5. Zeni, prior preparation. Predecide your responses for every possible obstacle. When X happens, you do Y. No thinking, no hesitation. Pure execution. These pillars transformed Ryoji. From a boy who could barely push himself 3 times into a shinobi capable of impossible feats. Not because he was stronger, but because he killed the part of him that hesitated. The path for you. And now I ask you, are you ready for this kind of transformation? This path is not comfortable. Not easy. Not for those who want just a little improvement. The NPO system demands sacrifice. Sacrifice the person who negotiates. Sacrifice the one who hesitates. Sacrifice the one who makes excuses about why today isn't the right day. In that person's place, a warrior is born. A warrior who doesn't rely on cheap motivation. Motivation is for the undecided. A warrior who doesn't break commitments. Because commitments are identity, not to-do lists. People will notice. They'll call you obsessive, extreme, over the top, unhealthy. Good. That means you are on the right track. Discipline that scares others is the only discipline worth having. Discipline that makes people uncomfortable produces extraordinary results. The question is not does it work? The question is, do you have the courage to commit fully? The challenge. Don't try. Don't compromise. Choose one habit. Make your public pledge. Affix your schedule. Define your perfect form. Commit to 100 days without gaps. Pre-solve every obstacle. Then watch what happens when you stop negotiating with yourself. Ryoji wasn't special. He was once a weak boy who decided to sacrifice that self so that a warrior could be born. And so can you.